Sampurita pamita paramita balena Vidvansiyo kila kilesa Samoha jalang Teneva landa arahang Arahoti namang Vandami buddha mamalang Hadaye tapetva Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa සදහවත් වාසනාවන්ත පින්නතුනි හැම දිනාටම සුබ දැසනක් වේවා බුද්ධ ධම්ම සංඝ කියන තෙරුවනේ ආශිර්වාදයෙන් හැම දිනාම බොහොම මෙත්සිතින් පිළිගන්නා ගමන් අද දිනට නියමිත මේ වැඩසටහන ආරම්භ කරන්නට බලාපොරොත්තු වන්නේ Venerable members of the Mahasangha, friends in the Dhamma, at this moment we are going to start our Dhamma program, SIL program. In this program, we hope to discuss the Buddha's message and practice it as much as we can. With the blessings of the Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, you all are warmly welcome to the temple. And today we hope to discuss the Buddha's message in short and practice it. When we say the Buddha's message, it is very clear that all the doctrines that the Buddha explained for 45 years can be summarized one sentence, which is that Sacitta Pariyodhapanam, purifying one's mind. Why do we need to purify our mind? We need to purify our mind for our inner peace. Inner peace or happiness is the main purpose of everyone. We do everything in the name of happiness. Happiness completely depends on purification of our mind. Even though we are very educated, even though we are very rich, if our mind is polluted with negative thoughts, everything that we earn is useless. Therefore, we should give the priority to purify our mind. The Supreme would explain the way how we purify our mind. First of all, we should understand the negative thoughts that disturb our peace of mind. There are three unwholesome mental states that disturb our peace of mind. They are craving, anger, and delusion. These are the negative thoughts that disturb our peace of mind. Actually, these are the real enemies who disturb our peace of mind. We usually think that the enemies are outside. Actually, enemies are inside in our mind. If you can defeat, if you can overcome these negative thoughts from our mind, this is the real war. This is the real winning that we can gain in this life. That is why the Supreme Buddha says, it is better to purify our mind from negative thoughts than we defeat hundreds of enemies in the battlefield. In this situation, the Buddha has pointed out the way how we purify our mind. Even though the Supreme Buddha has explained a lot of doctrines in his life for 45 years, all the doctrines that we should practice can be summarized into two qualities. They are practice loving kindness and practice in mindfulness. We have to practice only two qualities. In one side, practicing loving kindness meditation, contemplating on thus, may all beings be well, happy and peaceful. On the other side, practicing mindfulness. බුදුරජාණන් වහන්සේ වසර 45ක් ධර්ම දේශනා කළා. 84000ක් ධර්මස්කන්ධය කියලා අපි කියනවා. ඒ සීලම දේශනා වල හරිය ගත්තොත් අපිට ඇත්තටම පුහුණු කරන්න තියෙන කාරණා දෙකයි. එකක් මෛත්‍රී භාවනාව, අනිත් එක සතිපට්ඨානයි. මෛත්‍රිය පුහුණු කරන්න අපේ හිත සතර බ්‍රහ්ම විහරණයෙන් පිරෙනවා. මෙත්තා, කරුණා, මුදිතා, උපේක්ෂා. මනුස්ස ලෝකය බ්‍රහ්ම ලෝකයක් කරගන්න ක්‍රමය. මනුස්ස සිරුරක් දරාගෙන බ්‍රහ්මයේ පගේ ඉන්න කැමති නම් මෛත්‍රිය පාදක කරගත්තු සතර බ්‍රහ්ම විහරණ වඩන්න. අනිත් අතින් සතිමත් බව. අපේ සිත සහ කය ගැන අවධානය. සතිමත් බව. විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ සිතට මේ මොහොතේ වෙන්නේ මොකද්ද කියන කාරණේ. අවසාන වශයෙන් බලන්න තියෙන්නේ සිත මේ වෙලාවේ තියෙන්නේ ප්‍රඥාවෙන්ද අවිද්‍යාවෙන්ද කියන කාරණේ. කොහොමද අපි බලගන්නේ ඒක? ඇහැට රූපයක් දකිනකොට අපි හිතන්නේ මේ තේරුම් ගන්නේ මේ මොහොතේ වර්තමානයේ තියෙන රූපය කියලා හිතුවොත් මේ ඉදිරිපස්ස මේ වෙලාවේ දකින රූපය මන් තේරුම් ගන්න කියලා හිතුවොත් අපි ඉන්නේ අවිද්‍යාවේ. ඒ වෙලාවේ අපේ හිත ඒ රූපය තුල බැසගෙන තියෙනවා. ඒ රූපේ විසින් අපව පාලනය කරනවා. මේක තමයි අවිද්‍යාව පත්‍ය සංඛාරා කියන පටිසම්පාද සර්කල් එකේ ලක්ෂණය. මේ වෙලාවේ ඇහැට රූපයක් පේනකොටම අපි දැක්කොත් තේරුම් ගත්තොත් මේ රූපය පේනකොට ඊට පාදක වෙච්ච ඇස රූපේ චක්කු විඥානේ නිරුද්ධ වෙලා මම මේ මන විඥානේ තේරුම් ගන්න කියලා දැක්කොත් අපි රූපේ නිදහස් වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම මේ මොහොතේ එක දකින මනෝ විඥානියත් මේ මොහොතේ හටගෙන මෙතනම නිරුද්ධ වෙනවා කියලා තත්ත විපස්සති. ඒ මොහොතේ විදර්ශනා කරොත් අපේ බාහිර රූපේ නිදහස් වෙන ගමන්ම මනෝ විඥානයත් නිදහස් වෙනවා. මේක තමයි කියන්නේ යත්ත නාමංච රූපංච අසේ සමපුරුජ්ජති කියලා. නාම රූප දෙක ඉතුරු නැතුවම නිරුද්ධ වෙනවා කියන්නේ මෙන්න මේක. එතකොට අපිට ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරන්න තියෙන කාරණා දෙකයි. Although there are a lot of doctrines that the Blessed One explained for 45 years in his life, finally we have to practice only two qualities. One of them is practicing loving kindness meditation, contemplating on thus, may all beings be well, happy and peaceful. On the other side, practicing mindfulness, being aware of our body and mind. In this during the day, if you can practice these two qualities, when you meet a person, when you see a person, when you hear a sound of a person, when you remember a person, if you can practice that, may this person be well, happy and peaceful, it means you are practicing loving kindness meditation. When you see a person, when you hear a sound of a person, when you remember a person, immediately you should reflect on that. May this person be well, happy and peaceful. It means you are practicing loving kindness meditation. Whenever we practice loving kindness meditation, at the moment we have other sublime states too. Those are karuna, compassion, mudita, sympathetic joy, and upekha, equanimity. These are the four sublime states with that the Brahmas are living in the Brahma realm. You can make a Brahma world, Brahma realm in this immediate life if you can practice these four things, the four sublime states, Satra Brahma Vihara. On the other side, we should be mindful. When we do something, when we think something, when we speak something, if we can be mindful, being aware of our body and mind, at that moment we understand what happens to my mind. When you see something, If you think that there is a person at this moment, when I understand it, it means we are in ignorance. As soon as you see something, you hear something, when you understand it, if you can understand this form has already ceased, it means you are in wisdom. Wisdom is the main thing that helps us to liberate from suffering. When we practice loving kindness meditation, the purpose of practicing loving kindness meditation is that to reduce 5 hindrances or pancha nivarana: sensual pleasure, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and vicikiccha, skeptical doubts. These are the hindrances that disturb our peace of mind. Whenever we practice moral purity and tranquility, or sila and samatha, the purpose of practicing sila and samadhi is to reduce these 5 hindrances from our mind. Then we can develop our inner peace. On the other side, when we practice mindfulness, the purpose of practicing mindfulness is to overcome ignorance or delusion. Delusion is the main fact that causes to arise craving and anger. Whenever we are mindful and wise, when we experience something about the physical world, if we know that this form has already ceased, when I understand these forms and sounds, they have already ceased. If you have this understanding, immediately we come to this understanding. It means we have released from the outside world, and also at the same time we can release from our mind consciousness too. This is the way how we practice mindfulness. Therefore, in our entire life, we have to practice only 2 qualities: practicing loving kindness and practicing mindfulness. The more you practice these 2 qualities, the more you overcome negativity, so unwholesome mental states from your mind. And the more you overcome these negative thoughts from your mind, it means the more you are happier. Happiness is the main purpose of everyone in this world. There is a difference between doing our day-to-day activities and practicing Dhamma. There is a very special difference. In our day-to-day life, when we do some activities, we think that we come to happiness after we doing these activities. When you study, when you do a job, when you take care of your children, you think that you will receive happiness after you fulfill your duties. That happiness usually comes in future. That is why you always wish that adata vada honda hetak labewa. We wish a better day, better tomorrow than today. That tomorrow never comes. But what is the difference in practicing Dhamma? While we are practicing Dhamma, we are happy. Happiness is the thing that we gain whenever we practice Dhamma. That is very important thing. Practicing Dhamma is the way how we spend our time with happiness. Happiness is the main purpose of everyone. The more we practice Dhamma, the more we reduce negative thoughts, and the more we reduce negative thoughts, the more we achieve the real happiness, spiritual development. That is very, very important. Here, from the beginning to end on the path of liberation, we should continue. We should develop 4 factors. That is very important. They are, the very first one is association with good friends. Associating with good friends. Kalyana mittas asraya. Noble association. Good friendship. That is the first thing that decides our spiritual life. The second one, listening to Dhamma. Dhamma Savana. The more we receive the good association, the more we have the chance to listen to what the Blessed One explained. The next one, Yoniso Manasikaro, wise consideration. We think according to what we heard. Yoniso Manasikara means the way that we think not to arise defilements and the way how to overcome negative thoughts. This is Yoniso Manasikara. Fourth one, practice. Dhammanudhamma Patipatti. Practice according to what we heard. In short, Sila Samadhi Panya. Virtue, concentration, and insight meditation. With details, the Noble Eightfold Path. In very short, practice in mindfulness. These 4 things, from the beginning to end, on the path of liberation, we should cultivate, develop, and practice in our day-to-day life. Good association, listening to Dhamma, wise consideration, and practice of Dhamma. Among these 4 things, association of good friends is very, very important. Association, good friends, depends on our qualities. Already we have received Kalyana Mitta, but it depends on our present qualities. What are the qualities that we should have when we associate with good friends? The very first one is gently spoken, good attention. That is very important. It says in Buddhism, Suvacha, active listening. We should be gently spoken. On the path of liberation, very first quality is that being gently spoken, active listening. You are discussing about the spiritual path. In the spiritual path, from the beginning to end, we should fulfill 4 qualities. Good association, listening to Dhamma, wise consideration, and practice. Associating good friends means he who explains the Buddha's message is the good friendship. The second one, when we receive the good association, we should pay our attention to what they say. That is very important. That says in Buddhism, Suvacha, according to Karanimetta Sutta, Suvacho chassa mudvanatimani. Suvacha, active listening. And the next one is Yoniso Manasikara, wise consideration according to what we heard. And practice according to what we heard. Practice in Buddhism in short, practice in mindfulness. Being aware of our body and mind. What happens to my mind at the moment? And also in another way we can say practicing Dhamma is that practice in 3 disciplines, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Virtue, concentration, and insight meditation. With details, practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, Arya Attangika Marga. Among these 4 qualities: association with good friends, listening to Dhamma, wise consideration, and practice. Association, good friends, plays a very big role on this path. One day, Bhante Ananda explained something that near the Buddha. Bhante, I understand something. The half of this practice depends on good association. He says that near the Buddha. Bhante, I understand something. Half of the practice, half of the spiritual development depends on good association. At that moment, Buddha says, Mahevang Ananda. Don't say Ananda like that. Not only half, but the entire spiritual success depends on good association. That is very important. Actually, we have already received the good association, but if we want to reach the good association, we also should have some qualities. The very first one is that active listening. The second one is gratitude. We should be grateful. And also, we should have discipline in our speech and behavior. And also, we should wise. These qualities are very important. And also, on the other side, we should be generous. Generosity is one of the qualities that helps us to reach good association. If we are greedy, even though we have received the good association, we are unable to get the benefits from the good association. Therefore, always we should maintain a generous heart. According to some discourses, such as Kalama Sutta, the Blessed One explained, if a person practices generosity, he is ready to receive this message. We should practice generosity maximally. That is very important. We should have some kind of dedication to come to this path. That is very important. Generosity opens the spiritual path. When we have these qualities, especially we listening to what the Blessed One explained, what the Buddha explained. All the doctrines that the Blessed One explained for 45 years can be summarized into one sentence, which is that Sacitta Paryodaparam, purifying one's mind. Purification of mind is the main doctrine in Buddhism. Why do we need to purify our mind? What are the negative thoughts that disturb our peace of mind? There are 3 unwholesome mental states that disturb our peace of mind. They are lobha, greed, dosa, anger, and moha, ignorance. Why do we need to overcome these negative thoughts? Whenever we have these negative thoughts in our mind, actually we have no inner peace, no happiness, no contentment. Even though we are well educated, even though we are very rich, everything that we earn is useless. The happiness is the main purpose of everyone. Therefore, we should give the priority to practice this path. When we listen to Buddha's message, Buddha says very clearly, Mano Pubbangama Dhamma, Mano Setta Manoya. Mind is the forerunner. Mind is chief. Mind made ade. Manasache paduttehena bhasativa karotiva. If a person does something with a wicked mind, physically, verbally, or mentally, he will receive evil results, negative results, suffering. Suffering follows him because of the wicked mind. On the other side, Buddha says, if a person does something with a pure mind, happiness follows him because of your mind. This is the place where we should be confident in. If we have this confidence or faith in what the Buddha says, we never like to get suffering. Nobody likes suffering. Everyone likes happiness. We should decide whether we are suffering or we are happy. Whenever our mind is polluted with negative thoughts, with greed, anger and delusion, we have no real happiness. Whenever we have purified our mind from negative thoughts, that is the place where we have happiness. We are happy. If we are this confident, we give the priority to purify our mind in our life. The most valuable thing that we receive in our life is that mind. Here we understand what are the highest qualities that we can practice to purify our mind. Even though the Blessed One explained a lot of qualities and doctrines in his teachings, finally we have to practice only two qualities. What they are: in one side, practicing metta thoughts or loving kindness meditation, contemplating on thus, may all beings be well, happy and peaceful. As soon as you see a person, as soon as you remember a person, when you listening to a sound of a person, if you can contemplate on thus, may this person be well, happy and peaceful. This is the place where you can see your mental health. Mental health is more important than our physical health. Buddha always encourages us to make a healthy mind. That is why the Blessed One says, let's live happily without mental illnesses among the people, those who are mentally ill. Buddha says, Susukham vata jivama aturesu anatura aturesu manusyesu viharam anatura. Let's live happily without mental illnesses among the people, those who are mentally ill. This is your skill. What are the mental illnesses? Jealousy is a mental ill. Conceit, craving, greed, ignorance. These are the negative thoughts. These are the mental illnesses according to Buddhism. If we can overcome these negative thoughts from our mind, it means we are mentally healthy. That is very important. On the other side, we should practice mindfulness. Mindfulness means being aware of our body and mind. What happens to my body and mind at the moment? We should be aware of our mental condition at this moment. Here, when mind is angry, when mind has anger, we immediately understand, now my mind has anger. When mind is lustful, we immediately understand, now my mind has lust. Finally, the highest thing that we should be aware of that, whether my mind is ignorant or not. How do we check it? When we see a person, when we listen to a sound, when we remember a person or form, if we think that form is in the outside at the moment, that is the nature of ignorance. It doesn't mean that there are no material things in this world. Actually, there is a material world. We can contact it. But the very important thing, when we understand it, when we recognize it, the physical world has already ceased. That is very important. For an example, when we eat something, we usually look at the food in the plate. When we taste something, we usually think that what I am tasting is in the plate. Is it true? No. If we taste something at the moment, that food is in our mouth. But we think that when we taste something, we immediately look at the food in the plate. Looking at the very beautiful food in the plate, we are tasting. This is the nature of ignorance. Whenever we are tasting something, the food is in our mouth. Is it beautiful? It is good smell? Like the food which is in the plate? No. We never think that the food is which is in the mouth when we taste something. We always look at the food in the plate. We usually think that we are very educated, we are very wise. But look at here. This is the nature of ignorance. Our entire life is like that. When we see something, when we hear something, when we smell something, when we taste something, contemplate on that example, the food in the plate. When you look at the outside, if you think that these are very beautiful, it is like the plate, the food in the plate. What is the real experience? When we see something, our eye form, eye consciousness, everything has ceased. There were in the past, very immediate past, previous experience, it was here, but when we understand it, when we enjoy it, the form has already ceased. We recognize everything through our mind consciousness, not eye consciousness, not nose consciousness. That is why the Blessed One says, we are unable to recognize something through 5 consciousnesses. We recognize everything through our mind consciousness. And also very important thing, when we recognize something through our mind consciousness, the very first experience, the formal world has already ceased. If you have this understanding, we are like the lotus flowers which are in the mud, in the pond. Lotus flowers origin in the mud and water. But they come from the mud and water, they blooms with beauty and good smell in the mud, over the mud. We are also like that. Even though we are in the ordinary society who has negative thoughts with ignorance, if we can perform, if we can practice this quality, mindfulness and wisdom, we are like the lotus flowers. We don't touch their negative thoughts even though we live in the ordinary society. Buddha has encouraged us to be a lotus flower. That is says in Buddhism, Padmopakara Jivitaya, a life like a lotus flower. If we are mindful with this understanding, as soon as we see something, we hear something, we taste something, we smell something, we touch something, if we know that the form has already ceased, I recognize everything through my mind consciousness, it means our mind is not fixed in the outside material world. We can experience something, we can enjoy something. You can enjoy food, looking at the plate, but you are wise that If you taste something at this moment, that food is in your mouth. If you know it, you never have greedy with the food which is in the mouth. You have no conceit, no self-view, no jealousy about the food which is in the mouth. But if you think that the food that you taste at the moment is in the plate, then you have greed, you have anger, you have jealousy, you have conceit. But if you think that the food that I am tasting at the moment is in the mouth, we never have greed, anger, conceit, jealousy, even ignorance. This is the way how we practice Dhamma. We discuss the Dhamma in short. අපි මේ කෙටියෙන් ධර්මය සඳහන් කළේ විස්තර කළේ කෙටියම ගත්තොත් පුහුණු කරන් තියෙන්නේ එක පැත්තකින් මෛත්‍රී භාවනාව අනිත් පැත්තෙන් සතිපට්ඨානය. මෛත්‍රිය පුහුණු කරනකොට අපි මේ ලෝකීය බ්‍රහ්ම ලෝකයක් කරගන්නවා. සතිපට්ඨානය පුහුණු කරනකොට අපි මේ ලෝකීය ආධ්‍යාත්මික ලෝකයක් බුදුහාඳුරන්ගේ සමීපයේ ජීවත් වීම බවට පත් කරගන්නවා. For our entire life, we have to practice these two qualities. In one side, practicing loving kindness meditation. Whenever we practice loving kindness meditation, the highest attitude of practicing loving kindness meditation is that as soon as we see a person, we remember a person, we concern that person is like my only son or daughter. This is the highest attitude of practicing loving kindness meditation. If you have this understanding, concern, do we have conceit, jealousy, lust, greed? Nothing. When you are with your children, do you have lust in your mind? Do you have anger? Do you have conceit? Do you have self-view or sakkaya ditthi? Even though we are very educated, even though we have master degrees, doctorates, we have no conceit, we have no self-view when we are with the children. We are like they. We have dedicated our everything when we are near with our children. If you have this highest attitude of practicing loving kindness meditation, we are also like that. When we are with others, we have no negative thoughts because of this highest concern and attitude of practicing loving kindness meditation. That is why the Blessed One says, Yantan santam padang avisameccha sabbe satta bhavantu sukhidatta. He who wants to achieve the peace of mind should practice loving kindness meditation, contemplating on thus, may all beings be well, happy and peaceful. Practicing loving kindness meditation is the first step of our spiritual life. Until we practice this quality, loving kindness meditation, we haven't started our spiritual journey. Our spiritual journey, spiritual development starts with practicing loving kindness meditation. On the other side, practicing mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness means keeping our attention in the present moment. We reflect on impermanence. Form every moment arises and ceases. Mind also, or consciousness every moment arises and ceases. This is the way how we practice mindfulness. This is the last thing that we have to achieve. But a very important thing, the Buddha says very clearly, from the beginning to end, we have this understanding. For an example, if you go to another place, first of all, you should know the address. When you put it in the GPS navigator, first you add the house number, then street, city, zip code. But still you are here. You should know the final destination when you start your journey, trip. This spiritual journey also like that. We start with this spiritual journey with the understanding of the final destination. What is the final destination? Releasing from the material world and mind consciousness. That is the final destination. That is the address where we are reaching. At the very beginning, with the Sutame Jnana, the wisdom of hearing, we should know the path. That is why the exalted one says, Janato aham bhikkhave passato asavanam kayam vadami, no ajanato, no apassato. I proclaim the liberation for those who know the path, who see the path. Without knowing and seeing, we are unable to liberate from ignorance or delusion. At the very beginning of the path of liberation, we should know the path as the Sutame Jnana, the wisdom of hearing. That is the very first thing. The second thing is Chintame Jnana, Chintame Panya, the wisdom of contemplating or thinking. Not only we should listen to this message, but we should think it again and again in our day-to-day life. This is the nature of our life. When you work, when you eat, when you walk here and there, whatever you do from the morning to night, we should think this message again and again. Actually, what happens to my mind? When you drive, if you can understand this reality, when you see something, this form has already ceased. I recognize everything through my mind consciousness. That mind consciousness also arises and ceases at the moment. That is the place where we practice Chintame Panya, the wisdom of contemplating. And also the third one is Bhavaname Panya, the wisdom of meditation. Whenever we practice Samatha and Vipassana, tranquility and insight meditation. While we are practicing meditation, sitting in a posture, we think this reality again and again. As the result of practicing this path, practicing Dhamma is that sharpen the weapons for the war, for the battlefield. Practicing Dhamma is the way how we sharpen our weapons. What is the war? Where is the battlefield? When we see something that we don't like, that is the place where we use these weapons sharpened by us. But unfortunately, these sharp weapons every moment. When we go to the battlefield, we don't use these weapons. That is why we get upset. That is why we get angry and lustful very soon. Even though we have sharpened the weapons by practicing Sila, Samadhi and Panya, When we face some negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative experiences, we don't get the result from this practice. That is why we get angry, we get conceit and lustful. Practicing Dhamma is the place where we sharpen our weapons, spiritual weapons. In our day-to-day life is the place where we fight with the enemies. Who are the enemies? Enemies are not outside. Enemies are inside. Who are the enemies? Craving, anger, and delusion. These are the enemies who disturb our peace of mind. Outside persons and things are unable to disturb our peace of mind if we are mindful and wise. Buddha says very clearly, suffering definitely comes to the person who is unwise and unmindful. Suffering never comes to the person who is wise and mindful. That is why wisdom is highly appreciated in Buddhism. All the doctrines that the Blessed One explained in 45 years focuses on gaining wisdom. Wisdom is the main quality. That is why Buddha has encouraged us to achieve the wisdom. Wisdom is the gem of men. Panya naranang ratanam. Wisdom is the gem of men. And panyaya parisuddhati. Wisdom purifies one's mind. Natti panya sama abha. There is no any other light like wisdom. Wisdom is like the sun. What is the wisdom? Wisdom means we experience the empty world. It doesn't mean that there is no material world. Don't misunderstand. There is a material world. In the present moment, we can contact the material world through our five senses. But very important thing, when we recognize it, the form has ceased. We recognize everything through our mind consciousness. We always understand the empty world. That means in Buddhism, sunyato lokang avekkaso. Look at the world as sunyata or emptiness. If you have this understanding, we have nothing to attach or get angry. As soon as we experience something through our senses, we immediately look at inside. That means insight meditation or vipassana bhavana. Insight meditation means vipassana bhavana. It means we look at inside. He who sees the Dhamma, he who knows the Dhamma, look at inside as soon as we experience something. He who doesn't know the Dhamma, he looks at outside when he experiences the world because of ignorance. We should understand, we should decide whether we live wisely or unwisely. Whenever we are unwise, we depend on outside, suffering comes to us. Whenever we are wise, we don't depend on outside. We have made a refuge within us. We come to inside immediately. This is the place where we can make a refuge. The Buddha always encourages us to make a refuge within us. Dhamma deepa bhikkave viharata dhamma sarana na anya sarana. Dwell with the Dhamma as an island, as a refuge, with no other refuge. What is the Dhamma? Dhamma is this message. This message doesn't belong to Buddhists. The Buddha never preached his Dhamma to Buddhists. Buddha preached his message to the people who were seeking the spiritual development, who were seeking the liberation. Buddhism belongs to the persons who are seeking liberation, emancipation, enlightenment. Buddhism never belongs to Buddhism. Buddhism belongs to the persons who are seeking liberation, who want to make a refuge within them. Then they can reach the Dhamma, whether they are Buddhist or not. It doesn't matter. Buddha always encourage us to live wisely. That is why when a person asks a question from the Buddha, Katan jivin jivitamahu settam, what kind of lifestyle is great? Buddha says, Panya jivin jivitamahu settam, the life with Dhamma, with understanding is great. How do we live wisely? With wisdom. If you can practice mindfulness with this understanding, that is the place where we live wisely. Whenever we live wisely, nobody or nothing can disturb our peace of mind. Whenever a person or thing can disturb our peace of mind, be sure that we are not mindful and wise at the moment, since we depend on outside world. Whenever we practice mindfulness and wisdom, it means we have released from the material world. Whenever we have released from the material world with this understanding, outside world is unable to disturb our peace of mind, since we know very well material world has already ceased. I recognize everything through my mind consciousness. Then we have no craving and anger. Whenever we have wisdom, it means we have no craving and anger. Wisdom is like the sunlight. Wherever there is sunlight, there is no darkness. Whenever we have wisdom with this understanding, we have no any kind of negative thoughts at that moment. Whenever we are away from this understanding, whenever we are away from mindfulness, even though we have this understanding, we are ignorant. It means we are in the samsaric circle, we are with suffering. Nobody likes to get suffering. Therefore, we have to practice this path maximally. And also, this is the place where we should be faith or confident in. Saddha. Saddha mulika sabbe kusala dhamma. Saddha, confidence or faith in this understanding is the foundation of all the spiritual developments. Saddha is the main quality of all doctrines. All the wholesome deeds depend on Saddha or confidence. What is the Saddha? Saddha means what the Buddha explained. We confident in the Buddha's understanding. what the Buddha realized. Buddha realized that when our mind is polluted, suffering follows us. When our mind is pure, happiness follows us. This is Buddha's understanding. On the other side, when we are ignorant, we depend on outside, we are controlled by the outside world, suffering follows us. Whenever we are mindful and wise, we don't depend on outside world, we are not controlled by the outside world. Nobody likes to be controlled by the outside world. If you want to not to be controlled by the outside world, we have to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is the way how we make a refuge, how we make a best friend. We usually find friends, best friends from the outside world. Actually, they are not real best friends. Real best friend is that adding mindfulness to our mind. Mind with mindfulness is the best friend. Mind without mindfulness is that no best friend. That is why the exalted one says, whenever we practice mindfulness, it means we are near the Buddha. When you are near your parents, you have a protection, you have refuge, you have no fear, no doubt. Whenever you are near your parents, even you don't need to do a job. They earn money and they give you food. If you are near your parents, they are our world, they are our protection. Practicing mindfulness also like that. Practicing mindfulness is the way how we make our parents. That is why the Blessed One says, Sake gojare pettike vise charate. Dwell in the field of your father. Dwell in the field of your father. What is the field of your father? Who is your father? Our father is the spiritual father. The Buddha is our father. Living according to mindfulness is the way how we dwell with our spiritual father, the Buddha. Whenever we are away from mindfulness, it means we are away from our spiritual father, and also where we are in. We are in the Mara or devil. We are controlled by him. Our happiness depends on him. Anytime he can decide whether we are happy or unhappy. Do you like to be controlled by someone? No one likes to be controlled by outside people or things. Everyone likes to get freedom, liberation, emancipation. Living according to Dhamma is the way how we make a refuge within us. This is the real liberation. If we have made this refuge, liberation, actually we don't depend on even our physical body. When our physical body is going to decay, aging, sicknesses and death, we don't get suffering. Since we have made a refuge within us by practicing this path. Friends in the Dhamma, in this very first session, we hope to explain the summary of what the Blessed One explained. In short, the Buddha has explained the way how we achieve the real happiness. Our happiness depends on purification of our mind. Purification of our mind depends on our practice. What is our practice? Our practice is mindfulness. Practice in mindfulness depends on what we heard. What we heard depends on association, good friends. Association of good friends depends on our qualities. What the qualities that we should have? Active listening and dedication or generosity or charity. We should have open-handed, open heart to offer something to others. Generous heart invites us to associate with good friends who explains this message, and we can go forward little by little on this path. In this situation, if we have the confidence in this message, what the Blessed One explained, we give the priority to practice this path. The reason is that we trust in it. What we trust in? We trust in that this is the real way how we achieve the real happiness. The other thing, in our day-to-day life, we receive happiness after we fulfilling them. The difference between practicing Dhamma and our day-to-day life is that in our day-to-day life, we always think that we receive happiness after we fulfilling something, after we finish it. That is why we always wish a better tomorrow than today. But the very important thing, the difference in happiness in Buddhism, we receive the happiness whenever we practice Dhamma. When we practice Dhamma, we immediately receive the results, not after finishing our practice. There are some qualities of the Dhamma, what the Blessed One explained. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko. Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One. Sanditiko, visible results. Results can be seen in this immediate moment. When you practice loving kindness meditation, contemplating on thus, may all beings be well, happy and peaceful. At the moment, we are happy, since we have no lust and anger at the moment. When we practice mindfulness, we don't depend on the outside material world. Whenever we are suffering, be sure that at the moment, our mind is fixed in the outside material world, in a person or thing. Whenever your mind is not fixed in the material world, at the moment, you are not suffering. Even though your close friend or relative has passed away, when you think it, you can think it without suffering. If you understand that when you remember it, the form that you experience has already completely ceased. You are thinking this experience through your mind consciousness. You can remember a person who has passed away without suffering. It means we have made a refuge within us. That is why in Buddha's time, Mallika, when a lady, her husband was a very clever soldier, Bandula Senadipati. He passed away with his all sons in the battlefield. Mallika Devi heard this message when he was offering dana to the Mahasangha. Looking at the message, she was offering dana to the Mahasangha. At that moment, she could release from the suffering because of this understanding. This is the nature of the Dhamma. Sanditiko akaliko, visible results immediately affect you. Whenever we practice this Dhamma, especially using mindfulness and wisdom, we can receive the results in this immediate moment. That is why we should give the priority to practice this Dhamma. Even though we have relatives, friends, and other things, they never can release us from these sufferings. This understanding makes us release. That is why we should practice this Dhamma. That is why we should give the priority to practice this Dhamma. If we are trust in this message, we do everything in our day-to-day life, giving the priority to practice this path. It doesn't mean that we don't do our duties and responsibilities in our day-to-day life. Actually, we can fulfill our responsibilities and duties in our day-to-day life maximally. While we are doing those things, we give the priority to practice this path because we know very well this is only path that can make us release from the suffering. Okay, friends in the Dhamma, අපේ මේ කතා කළේ බුදුදහමේ මූලික කරුණු ටික. බුදුදහම සම්පූර්ණ විස්තර කරන්නේ සතුට ලබන මාර්ගය. ඒ සතුට අපි කරන වැඩේ කළා ඉවර වෙලා නෙවෙයි. ඒ වැඩේ කරන ගම. අපි ජීවිතේ කරන හැම දෙයක්ම බලන්න අපට සතුට ලැබෙන්නේ කොහොමද? ඒ වැඩේ කළ ඉවර වුණාට පස්සේ. දැන් ඔබ ගෙදරින් නම් මෙහා ආවනේ. එනකන් ඔබ හිතුවේ මෙහා ආවට පස්සේ සතුට තියෙන කියලා. ඉක්මනටම ගමන ඉවර කරන්න තමයි බැලුවේ. ඔබ කොච්චර ඉක්මනින් ගමන ඉවර කරාද කියන එක නෙවෙයි සාර්ථකත්වය. ඔබට වටින ඔබේ කාලය. කාලෙන් උපරිම ප්‍රයෝජන ගන්නවා කියන මොකද්ද? ඒ එන කාලය තුලදී ඔබ ධර්මයේ ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරන් ආවනම් ඔබ මෙතෙන්ට පැයෙන් ආවත් එකයි, පැය 5කින් ආවත් එකයි. ඔබ ඉක්මන් වුණා කියලා සාර්ථක නැහැ. ඇයි ඒ? ඔබට වටින කාලය, ඒ කාලය ඔබට කොච්චර ධනය දුන්නත් ඒ ගෙවුණු කාලේ නැවත ඔබට ගන්න බෑ. ඒ නිසා කාලයට අපි උපරිම වටිනාකමක් ලබා දෙන්න ඕන. කොහොමද ඒක කරන්නේ? ඒක කරන්නේ ඒ කාලයට අපි මේ ධර්ම එකතු කරන්නට ඕන. ගත වෙන හැම මොහොතකම ධර්මයත් එක්ක එකට ජීවත් වෙන්නට ඕන. අපි ධර්මයේ හැසිරුණත් නොහැසිරුණත් අපි ටිකෙන් ටික වයසට යනවා. අපි ධර්මයේ ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරත් ප්‍රැක්ටිස් නොකරත් මේ කෙස් ගස් ටික සුදු වෙන එක, හැමරැලි වැටෙන එක, හැරමිටි අතට එන එක වළක්වන්න බෑ. ඒක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම වෙනවා. නමුත් මේ ලස්සන ශරීරයේ දි รา පත් වෙද්දී අපට පුළුවන් වුණා නම් ඒත් එක්කම ධර්මයේ රකින්න, ධර්ම වෙනුවෙන් සේවයක් කරන්න, අන්න අපේ කාලයට උපරිම වටිනාකමක් ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. එහෙම වටිනාකම ලබා දුන්නා නම් අපි කන්නාඩිය ළඟට ගියාට පස්සේ අපිට දුකක් ඇති වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අනේ දැන් කොණ්ඩේ සුදු වෙලා, දත් ටිකක් වැටිලා, දැන් ඉතින් කුදු වෙලා කියලා කන්නාඩිය ළඟදී දුක් වෙන්න ඕනේ අපිට සතුටක්. අපේ කන්නාඩි ළඟදී අපේ ශරීරය දුර්වල වුණත් අපිට සතුටක් ඇයි මේ ශරීරය මහලුනේ නිකන් නෙවෙයි. මේ ශරීරය මහලුනේ පින්කම් කරමින් භාවනා වඩමින් සතිපට්ඨානේ වඩමින් මහලු වෙච්ච ශරීරයක් මේ තියෙන කියලා තමන්ටම තමන්ගේ ශරීරය ගැන ලොකු ආදරයක් ගෞරවයක් ඇති වෙනවා. තමන්ගේ ශරීරයට විතරක් නෙවෙයි තමන් පාවිච්චි කරපු බඩු භාණ්ඩ වලට ආදරයක් ගෞරවයක් හටගන්නවා. අනේ මගේ මේ ෆෝන් එක පාවිච්චි කළා මං කොච්චරනම් බණ ඇහුවද? මේ ෆෝන් එක පාවිච්චි කළා කොච්චරනම් මං බණ රෙකෝඩ් කළාද? මේ වාහනේ නැගලා මං කොච්චරනම් පන්සල් ගියාද? කොච්චරනම් භාවනා පන්ති වලට ගියාද? මේ වාහනේ යන ගමන් මං කොච්චරනම් බණ අහලා තියේද? වාහනේම ඩිවයිස් එක පාවිච්චි කළා මං කොච්චරනම් බණ ඇහුවද මේ වාහනේ යන ගමන්? එතකොට ඔබට වාහනේ මයිලේජ් එක දකිනකොට දුකක් නෙවෙයි තියෙන සතුටක්. මයිලේජ් එක වැඩි වෙච්ච පමණට සතුටුයි. අද අපිට කොහොමද? මයිලේජ් එක වැඩි වෙන දුකයිනේ. අනේ මේක සෙකන්ඩ් මාකට් එක අඩු වෙනව නේද එන්නේ දුකයිනේ. ඔබ මයිලේජ් එක වැඩි වෙනකොට ධර්මයක් ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරා නම් ඒක කෞතුක භාණ්ඩයක් වෙනවා. ඒක කෞතුකාගාරයක තියන්න පුළුවන්. මෙන්න මයිලේජ් ගානට මයිලේජ් එකේ ප්‍රමාණයට මම ධර්මයේ ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරා. මම ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේට දානය අරන් ගියා. මම පන්සලට උදව් කළා. මම අසරණයට සැලකුවා. මගේ අම්මට උපස්ථාන කරන්න දේවල් ගෙනියන්න මම මේ වාහනෙන් ගියා. කියලා හිතනකොට මයිලේජ් එක වැඩි වෙන්න වාහනේට වඳින හිතන තමන්ට. අද වාහනේ පරණ වෙන්න දුකයිනේ. අනේ මයිලේජ් එක වැඩි දැන් දුර ගමනක් නම් යන්න හොඳ නැහැ. රෙන්ට් කරන් යන්න ඕන වාහනේ වටිනකම අඩු වෙනවා කියලා. ඔබ මේ ධර්මයේ තේරුණාට පස්සේ ඔබ හොඳම ගමන් යන්නේ ඔබේම වාහනේ. වාහනේ ඉතින් පරණ නම් කමක් නැහැ ඉතින්. නමුත් ඔබේ වාහනේ හොඳ නම් ඔබ හැම ගමනක්ම යන්නේ ඔබේම වාහනේ. ඔබේ වාහනේට ඔබ උපරිම වටිනකමක් ලබා දෙන්න ඕන. වටිනකම කියන්නේ අර විකුණනකොට තියෙන වටිනකම නෙවෙයි. වටිනකම තියෙන්නේ ඒ වාහනේ පාවිච්චි කරද්දී හොඳම දේවල් ඔබ කරලා තියෙනට ඕන. පරණ උනායි කියලා බඩු වල වටිනකම අඩු වෙන්නේ නැහැ පේනතුනි. එහෙනම් ඇන්ටික්ස් වල වටිනකම අඩු වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඇන්ටික්ස් වල වටිනකම අලුත් ඒවාට වඩා වැඩි නේද? දැන් කෞතුකාගාරවල දැන් ලොකු වාහන කම්පැනි වල කෞතුකාගාරවල තියෙනවනේ භාණ්ඩනේ. ජනාධිපතිවරු පාවිච්චි කරපු වාහනේම තියෙනවා. නළු නිළිය පාවිච්චි කරපු වාහන තියෙනවා. ඒ වාහන අලුත් වාහන වලටත් වඩා මිල වැඩි. ඒ භෞතික වාහන විතරක් නෙවෙයි මේ අපේ ෆිසිකල් බොඩි එකත් එහෙමයි. පාවිච්චි කරන්න Tamanට වටිනාකම වැඩි වෙන විතරක් නෙවෙයි. ඒ ශරීරයේමති වාහනය පාවිච්චි කළා අපි නිවන් දැක්කොත් එදාට කොහමද? එදාට 911 කතා කරලා මේක යවන්න ඕනේ නැහැ වාහනේට. එදාට දෙවුරු ඇවිල්ලා මේ ශරීරයේ කොටස් ධාතු කරඬු වල තියලා වඳිනවා. කෙස් ගස් ටිකට හිටා. අද අපි මිය ගිහිල්ලා පැය කිහිපයක් ගෙදර තියන්න පුළුවන්. ඉක්මනටම ගෙදර කෙනා කතා කළා මෙයා යවනවා බොඩිය. අඩු ගානේ ෆියුනරල් එක වෙනකන්වත් ගෙදර ඔබේ බොඩිය තියාගන්නේ නැහැ. හොඳට මතක තියාගන්න. ඔබ සලකපු ඔබේ ස්වාමි පුරුෂයා, භාර්යාව, දරුවන් කොච්චර සලකලා තිබුණත් අඩුම වශයෙන් ඔබ මිය ගිහිල්ලා ෆියුනරල් එක වෙනකන්වත් ගෙදර ඔබේ බොඩිය තියාගන්න සූදානම් නැහැ. විතරක් නෙවෙයි. ගෙදරදී මිය යන්නත් බය සමහර අය නේ. ඇයි ඒ? ගෙදර සෙකන්ඩ් මාකට් එක අඩු වෙයි කියලා බයයි. ඒ තරම් අපේ ජීවිතේ වටිනාකම අඩු කරගෙන තියෙනවා. ඇයි ඒ? ඒ වෙලා තියෙන අපේ මේ ආධ්‍යාත්මික දියුණුවේ අඩුවමයි පින්නතුනි. මේ ආධ්‍යාත්මික ජීවිතයේ දියුණු වෙච්ච පමණට අපට අපේ ජීවිතේ හුඟක් වටිනවා. අපි පාවිච්චි කරන බඩු වහන්න වටිනවා. අපේ හිටිය තැනත් වටිනවා. රහතන් වහන්සේ කෙනෙක් කියලා කියන්නේ ඒ රහතන් වහන්සේ පායට පාගපු දුවිලි වලටත් ලෝකෙ මිනිස්සු වඳිනවා. අනේ මේ රහතන් වහන්සේ මේ බුදුරජාණන් වහන්සේ ගියපු පාර කියලා ඒ පාරේ වැලි ටිකටත් ඒ පාරටත් වඳිනවා. මිනිස්සු විතරක් නෙවෙයි දෙවිවරු බ්‍රහ්මයෝ වඳිනවා. ඒ වඳින්නේ ඇයි? ඒ වඳින්නේ මේ භෞතික ශරීරය නිසාම නෙවෙයි. ඒ වඳින්නේ ඒ ශරීරය දරාගෙන හිටපු පුද්ගලයා ආධ්‍යාත්මික වශයෙන් මේ ඉහළ මට්ටමින් ලෝකයේ දෙස මෛත්‍රියෙන්, මහා කරුණාවෙන්, ප්‍රඥාවෙන් ලෝකයේ දෙස බලලා කටයුතු කරපු නිසා. ඒ නිසානේ වටිනාකම අපේ ජීවිතයට ලබා දෙන්නයි බුදුරජාණන් වහන්සේ උත්සාහ කළේ. ඒ නිසා මෙලොව ඉපදිච්ච හැටියට අපි හුඟක් වාසනාවන්තයි. ඒ වාසනාවන්ත බවෙන් උපරිම ප්‍රයෝජන ගන්නට අපි උත්සාහ ගන්නට ඕන. ඉතින් එහෙම කරන්ට ඔබට සියලු ශක්තිය, ධෛර්යය, වාසනාව ලැබේවා කියලා අපි ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරනවා. We are going to end this first session of our program. After a short break, we will meet again and we will practice meditation, guidance meditation. And there we hope to practice some samatha meditation techniques. Especially, we practice loving kindness meditation and Buddhanussati for our inner peace. The purpose of practicing concentration meditation is to reduce our negative thoughts, especially hindrances from our mind, and develop our spiritual happiness. For that, I invite you to come again after a short break. By the power of this spirituality, by listening to Dhamma and thinking of Dhamma, may you be well, happy and peaceful. May you all spiritual goals meet with success. Finally, may all of us attain the final bliss of liberation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dukkham pantāca nindukkhaṃ, bhayam pantāca ninbhayāṃ, sokam pantāca nissokāṃ, hontu sabbe pipānino. May all beings be well, happy and peaceful.